jump right in here. This is Clown Town Podcast. This is Joe here. We got Jack Wilkie as our guest.
What's going on, guys? Thanks for having me.
Of course. And last night's episode was great. We talked about, a little Boston sports and Eli Manning and Daniel Jones, so definitely tune into that. Today we're going to start off with a little background about Jack. Jack, go ahead.
Yeah, I've been friends with Joe for a little while now. We went to high school together. Same with Higgy. Just met Tiger recently, but a little bit about me. I work construction in Boston, and I'm a huge hockey fan too, but a sports fan in general.
Awesome. All right, so let's talk about when the NHL and the NBA come back. First of all, when is it going to come back? When do we think it's going to come back? Tiger, I'm going to start with you.
See, I am not very optimistic about this. I think if it does come back, the time where it's going to be safe, perhaps, is going to be too late for hockey. So you really don't want to be playing games in the summer. It's not that attractive. So I actually don't know if it will come back.
What, both sports or just NHL?
Mostly just NHL, but I mean, I have a feeling too, the NBA, it could run into the summer, and then you're kind of screwing over the whole next season as well.
Yep.
So I think it may be the smart move, and I hate saying this, to cancel both the seasons. In order to save the future, you have to cancel the rest of the year.
Well, I mean, they are back a couple months, but even if they keep going and start it later on, they still have that 5-month window that they have in the off season that they can just shorten down and then start the next season up again. Just give them a less time of an off season and just start the season back up again next year. Because I don't think this will go so far as to impede next season. It might push it back a little bit, but then the next season after that, it'll be perfectly fine. I don't see that there's that big of an impact on them even playing in the summer. They all play indoors, so there's not much going on there that can impact it. I think they would just lose so much money, and
that's the big thing too, the revenue.
Yeah,
the owners they're going to lose so much money.
Yeah.
Yeah, the amount of money that ends the college basketball lost without March Madness.
Oh, yeah.
I think they estimated hundreds of millions of dollars that they lost, especially casinos too.
I think we may have to separate what we're talking about with NHL and NBA. I think we may have to separate that because NBA, you can pretty much play whenever. But if you're telling me you want to see July, August hockey in Sunrise, Florida, you're joking.
Well, I mean it's indoors, so it's not.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Watching the sun set in the background while they play hockey in Florida, it's going to be indoors. You're not going to be able to tell. You're gonna,
right? No, but
you're going to know yourself that it's
heat,
live, but it doesn't really matter because they have AC in the buildings, and you're not going to be playing indoors. And it's going to be July, and the ice is going to be melting. You're indoors. So I don't think it really matters. They could have had it any time, but it
does though.
It doesn't.
It does. I mean, as much as you want to say, it's top of the line equipment to keep everything frozen, it still is slushy in areas.
It's indoor,
especially those southern hemisphere states.
It's an indoor stadium.
Yeah,
right.
Higgy, even though it is indoor, there's even been moments in Boston in the summer, you look at last year's Stanley Cup final, there were reports where the ice was terrible throughout the whole cup final.
Well, I mean, they'll have...
It doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter. It's hard to, just with all that moisture and humidity, it's just hard to keep ice under the correct conditions you need to during that time of year.
Yeah, well, they'll only have to make adjustments and advancements in their technology because they play it in the same season every year, so they don't really need to make it that much colder and as time goes on. They're gonna have
right.
Yeah, they'll change stuff up. They'll make it so that it won't be icy. I mean, it won't be slushy. It won't be too hot in there. They'll fix it. They're not just gonna let it go.
Yeah, and there's been playoff games in 100-degree weather already, so it's not like they can't play in that kind of weather. I think the bigger thing is with the NHL, as opposed to the NBA, these guys, they're going to need like a 2-week training camp or something to get going. They can't just hop into these.
You can't just hop in.
If you're going to cut out the rest of the regular season, which I think they should do, you got to do what you got to do if you're going to bring this league back. You can't just have these guys hopping into Stanley Cup playoff games. They're going to kill each other.
Right. Yeah. I mean, my take on this, and I know it's not the popular one, I think you got to call it.
Yeah,
it's got to be.
I'd
over.
agree. I'd agree.
Playoffs included.
It sucks.
Do you want to be the team that won the 2020 Stanley Cup? Do you really want to be that team?
I mean, you live your entire life to make it to the playoffs, and your team that's going to make it this year, you really want to get canceled when it can come back? I don't really see any play.
If you're forcing it too much and everything's so sped up, say they get back and they say, okay, playoffs start now. Sorry to the teams that, I know you've played 68 games and other temes have played 71, but, that's it. You're out of the bubble. And then you have so those teams that may not necessarily even are supposed to be in there, and then they're in there, say they win. Say if you're coming from the perspective of a Bruins fan, do you want to win the 2020 Stanley Cup?
Yeah.
If the playoffs start the day everything's approved, do you want to win the cup? Because for every other fan, for every other team, you didn't really win that cup.
Well, I mean,
I know what you're saying.
It'd be the same thing. So I don't really.
Yeah, but see, like I agree with Higgy. Everyone's in that same position. It's just so tough to throw away a season, in my opinion. These college players, I know it's different college, obviously, but these NCAA basketball players are devastated.
Yeah.
I can't even. Especially teams that are doing so well, like the Lakers, they came back. Couldn't even imagine them canceling a season.
I mean, I'm just thinking in terms of preserving the future. It may be the right thing to do. In terms of, you don't want to have that shortened off seasons. You want to have the off season so you can prepare for a real full season. You don't want to say, okay, the Stanley Cup's going to be in August, and then guess what? We have little less than 2 months to prepare for the entirely new year.
Yeah.
You're messing up all the operations, not just for the next season, but down the line. You're making judgments that you may not necessarily make with an anticipated schedule. I think if you do allot yourself that time for the next season, everything can go back to normal faster.
Here's what I don't want. Have you guys heard this rule where, if they cancel the NHL season, the team with the most points gets awarded the Stanley Cup?
I have heard
I swear to God, if they fall through with that rule and they award the Bruins the Stanley Cup, I'm going to lose my mind. That would be the worst possible
I would rather
way.
there be no champion than the Bruins.
Just don't hand it out. Yeah. There's nothing. Act like it's a lockout season. I don't care.
Yeah.
That would be possibly the worst thing that could happen. That sounds awful.
Yeah, I'm coming to it from a fan of the Bruins saying,
same
I
here.
don't want this on my hands at all. That's the last thing any team needs.
Yeah. I mean, all these teams are going to make it. If you didn't make it, okay, you were bad to begin with. You should have played better. If you're not
if they can
to the playoffs with this, straight to the playoffs, or at least you give them a week or 2 games, but all those teams that you're saying oh, what about them? They played less games. Okay, well they should have played better.
See, but here's kind of what I'm looking at. You have a team that has played 68 games. As I'm looking at it right now, the New York Islanders have played 68 games. They are 1 point from tying Columbus, who has played 2 more games than them, and that is the difference between a playoff spot and not. So you can't. It's not even about playing better; it's about having the same opportunity.
Yeah.
You can't look at me and say that I'm worse for playing 2 less games than you.
Well, I mean, everyone has a schedule. It's okay, they were given the schedule at the beginning of the season. They knew where they were going to be at certain times in the season.
Yeah, but they didn't know that a virus was going to sweep the world.
It doesn't matter, though.
They say, about mid-March we're going to get hit with a nasty virus, so we got to make sure we're 3 points ahead of this team. That didn't happen.
They're always thinking, we should be 3 points ahead of this other team. They're not always thinking Oh, okay. So we still have a couple months left. Who cares if we're down by a couple? That doesn't matter. Like they always want to be ahead of the other team. That's an entire season. An entire team. Their entire season is to try and be better than another team. They need to play more. They need to play better. Like even if they're down by 2 games, like okay, they should have won more games. Like it doesn't matter because
everybody wants to go 82-0. It just doesn't happen.
every team's in the same boat. Every team is in the same boat. It doesn't matter.
I don't know.
You can't say that if your team is in there, it's in the playoffs, 70 games played, and you have 81 points. Say you're the Columbus Blue Jackets, and I'm the New York Islanders. I have 2 less games played than you, and I'm 1 point away. If I lose a game in overtime, we have the same exact record.
Okay.
And I still have another game to play to catch up to you. Are you going to say that I don't deserve to be in the playoffs because I didn't get to play my game?
Deserve to be in it. I'm saying that stinks. Okay, it stinks.
I think you need to find, if you're going to bring the season back and go through the playoffs and everything, you need to find a way where basically a fair way where you can determine the playoff format for those teams like the Islanders who are 1 point out but have played 2 less.
Just have them play 2 more games.
Right. The maximum amount of games that have been played right now is 71. There are a few teams that have played 71 games, no team that have played more than that.
Yeah.
If you want to say, okay, everybody catch up to 71 or everybody hit a cap at 72 and then we start, that would be far more fair than just pulling it as
You're giving some teams more games to play than other teams. Like once they come back, you're giving more teams an advantage. Like say like the Islanders are like 1 point back and 2 games back, like behind them. If you have them play 2 more games than the Blue Jackets, and then they come into the playoffs 2 games fresher than all the other teams.
Well, it's not going to be a perfect scenario wherever it is, but whatever you can do to make it the most fair.
It does. Okay, who cares about fair? It's a season. What
happens? You can't just say who cares about fair. That's not how that works.
It's just more dirt on the hands of the NHL if that actually happens. If they cap it and they say 68 versus 70, well, what can you do?
Yeah, you know what? There's 2 good points here. Higgy, you bring up a good point, and Tiger, you do too. It's back and forth because that's exactly the conversations that they're having right now. Nobody knows what to do because this is not prepared. Like you said, Tiger, this is not prepared at all. This is a fucking mess. So
nobody's seen anything like this before.
Never. So first of all, I disagree with you, Tiger. I think they're gonna do whatever they can to preserve the season. Yeah, I agree with you. In the future, it's probably better to say cancel it. But I say they're going to do whatever possible, both the NHL and the NBA, to save and preserve the season because this whole season, they're preparing for 2020. Everyone does. Lakers is a prime example. They have amped up for the past, whatever years to get to here. And for them to just cancel the season and nothing matters. First of all, they lose so much money, and second of all, just the morale of the players must just be heartbreaking. And that brings us to the second point, where let's talk about how the players will adapt if the season will, go on. And that's the whole thing.
I need to touch on what you were saying previously because I need to rebut that before we move on. I think we also need to keep in mind why we're missing the season. So it's not just about, okay, when everybody's cleared to come back, everybody floods the stadiums again. I can't see that happening. Once these regulations that have been put into place are taken away and things start to resume, I don't think everything just goes back to normal from what we've all been going through. So yes, everybody, on June 15th or something like that, everybody may say, okay, all these guidelines are lifted now. I don't think on June 16th everything picks up as normal. I think there's going to be a phase.
Yeah, there's going to be an adjustment.
There has to be.
Everyone does what they want to do. Like if it becomes the 16th and people want to go to games, they can go to games. Or they can just say, okay, we're not having fans. Everyone has their own
I mean, they can, but then you're forcing the players to play when they may not feel comfortable going and being around someone.
That's a good point. Very good point.
You're forcing the players.
For the most part, I would assume the players want to play.
Yeah,
you assume. But there may be players who don't want to be anywhere near their opponents because they're still scared. Yeah. You don't know, and it comes down to forcing people to play or canceling the rest of the season. And I think you got to think about canceling.
I agree. Bottom line is it's gotten to this point where still at this point nobody really knows when this is going to end. So just cancel it. It would be in the best interest for everybody, I think.
Oh, it's just so hard to say that. I feel like
it is, and I really didn't want to believe it at first that was even a possibility. But
them canceling the NCAA tournament for me was fucking heartbreaking, and I can't even imagine what the players are going through. And the same, like I was saying, the same, for the professionals. I want to talk about if, let's just say the season does go on, right? How would the players adapt? Would the morale be the same? Here's the biggest point, like you said before, Wilkie, is I think they will be out of shape, and I think they will need a 2-week period.
So I think, and this isn't really a hockey guy bashing on basketball kind of thing, but I think the NBA could just jump right in. Like those guys, whatever, they do a few sprints and they're probably ready to go. Hockey, obviously, it's just like it's a fucking war every shift. So I think hockey, you would have to do the 2-week training camp. If you want to do it for basketball too, fine, but I don't think you need to.
But will they have time? I don't think they'll have time. That's
another thing you got to take into consideration.
I mean, it's only 2 weeks. If they do 2 weeks, it's just 2 weeks. It's not like they're giving them like 2 months. It's 2 weeks. Like, just take that.
I don't know though.
These guys that haven't been skating or anything like that, like they need time to. I mean, even if you want to go a week, whatever, they need something to get their legs.
Don't have them play actual games. Just have it be like couple weeks, like just 2 weeks of practices. Yeah, just of their team in their practice stadium. Just have them practice.
All they need is a mini training camp, and those guys would.
They don't need games. They just need somewhere to go to get back the routine.
But like Tiger brought up, there might not even be enough time for that.
That's what I'm thinking.
There's just so many things that come into play.
Well, I mean, they'll find time. They're not just gonna put it off and be like, okay, well, and NHL season was supposed to start a month ago, and the season just ended. Okay, 1 week, and then we're gonna start it up again to try and make it so the next season will be canceled. They're not gonna do that. They're just gonna keep pushing it off until it finally gets into the way it's supposed to be. That's what they're gonna do. They're not just gonna just pick it right back up in the next season. They're just gonna keep giving them time, keep spacing it out, and then it'll get back to the way it's supposed to be. That's how everything's gonna go.
Yeah.
It's just such a tough situation, and the league offices have just probably been arguing about this like we are for the past couple of weeks now, and they will be for the next month.
Yeah.
How is the salary going to work? Do we know about that yet? I haven't.
Well, I mean, the MLB is signed a deal with the Players Association that said that these players are still all going to get paid for the time off. I mean, it's not their fault that they're not playing. They signed contracts to play all these games and to play for this season. And even though the season even if the season gets canceled, they should still get paid for it because they signed contracts to be on the team for this amount of time. They just still get the money and all this stuff. I don't see why they would not pay him for all this stuff.
Yeah. I just don't know how it works, especially for NBA and NHL. I mean, what's are they is the contract suspended now, or how is that? Do you guys know, Tiger or Wilkie?
I don't know, but I mean, my assumption is they've played close to 70 games. Let's just say as an average, which is only 12 games away from a full season.
Yeah,
and.
Yeah, those guys are going to get
they should, checks, and they probably will.
Yeah. Yeah, and as far as playoffs go, yeah, they stop getting paid in the playoffs. The only thing they can get in the
Right.
playoffs is bonuses. So the playoffs doesn't matter.
So they just wouldn't
that
get
wouldn't
the
matter.
bonuses.
Yeah, right.
Unless it's played.
Right.
Yeah,
Unless
exactly.
it's played. All right, and then speaking of playoffs, how would the playoffs work? I heard that the NBA is thinking about doing a best-of-5 series to start off. And then, Wilkie, did you say that the NHL might do best-of-3?
No, that was more of just like a topic we could debate. I don't want to see any professional sports series do best of 3. I hate that one game playoff in baseball.
So
I think
stupid.
it's
That's the most
stupid.
exciting baseball.
That is.
It is,
That
but
is.
that's just I don't know.
I love it.
But
I don't like
I don't think you can go to a best
I mean,
of
in
3.
football, it's different because they pretty much only play
Oh, yeah.
one game, but in baseball they play the same team like 3 games like in a row, so they would need to play them multiple times just for it to be the same.
I mean, this is a whole different topic, but you can argue that because of the NFL playoff, schedule, one or done, it's more popular watched than the other sports. But I do know that NHL, NHL hockey is great, playoff hockey is great, but I would argue that NFL is more popular because of the playoff schedule, situation. But that's a whole different topic.
Yeah, for sure.
Do we want to talk about the Bruins a little bit?
I want to get into a topic that popped into my head.
Go ahead.
How Jeremy Jacobs has not paid his arena staff in full yet for the time they're going to miss is one of the most despicable things I've ever heard of. Like, I don't even know what to say about it. Like, I'm almost like embarrassed to be a Bruins fan.
It is genuinely one of the most embarrassing things for a man worth $3.1 billion.
Unbelievable. Like, it blows my mind. Like, and he decides to set up what was it? He put in like 1.5 million or something like that. But
which is like
really?
$40 to you and me.
Yeah, exactly. That's like the quarter I find in my pocket.
Yeah, that's insane.
It's just unbelievable, but yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even know about that. That's fucking insane. And you're seeing all these other NBA teams, donating money. You're seeing Drew Brees, for example, joining $5 million. It's insane that owners can't just all owners across these suspended seasons, NHL, NBA, should be paying full salaries to these staff. No question.
Yeah.
There's no.
And honestly, the players should be chipping in
and most
too.
Players are,
and a lot of them are, but the ones who aren't.
But that's not their job, though. That's also not their job.
I know, but I more mean like the higher paid players.
And
like you don't have to have those lower end guys chipping in that much.
But you are seeing, like Joel Embiid donating, Blake Griffin's donating.
Oh yeah,
a lot of those players are donating, but that's also not their job. It should be the owner's job. It is the owner's job to completely fully pay their salary for their staff, because it's not fair to them. They're not getting, like Mark Cuban is great example. He's doing it 100%. He said it's not their fault this season.
Yeah, he did it right away.
Yeah, Mark Cuban's the man.
Without hesitation.
Without hesitation. The day they stopped, he said, "I'm 100% paying these players full, and I'm going to give extra money to their families." And I'm going to set a different, money aside for them. I mean, he's worth probably more than all the owners, but different. That's a different story. But it's just it is despicable, Jack, that the Brewers owner is not paying their full salaries.
Yeah, it's brutal, but it's not good. Not a good look.
All right, do you guys want to get into the different aspects of the Bruins here, or are we all set? Up to you guys.
No, let's dive into it.
Let's dive into it. I'm in. My point here, it says perfection line needs to be better in playoffs. Jack, I'm going to start with you. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so just kind of thinking about the whole playoffs thing. Well, there's nothing to think about right now. In my opinion, that Marchand, Bergeron, Pastrnak line, they just were so on and off last playoffs Like you look at that Game 7, that line was terrible. The Game 7 against
we
St.
don't need
Louis,
to
I
look
should
at
say.
that. That's fine.
Yeah, no, just a quick little point there, but we'll get rid of the bad memories in a second. No, yeah, they just need to be more consistent and just overall
Yeah, they
tougher
were
in the
just so
playoffs for me.
inconsistent. It was like they would play like incredible like hockey. Like Rask would give up like a goal, they would score like 5 goals, and then next game they'd lose like 8-1 or something. It was like crazy. It was just back and forth like every other game. They do really good and then just terrible, really good and then terrible. They just need to be consistent.
It was just a very weird dynamic, I feel like. The regular season last year, the perfection line really did carry them. They really did perform in the regular
Yeah,
season. And then when it got to the playoffs, it came to the Bruins' depth to get them that far, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But where do your top goal scorers go in the playoffs when it matters the most? Yeah, they show up here and there, but you need them all the time.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, and just one more little point. Charlie Coyle is just he's like one of my favorite Bruins to watch. It's been a little while, but every single time he's on the ice, it
Oh
just
yeah,
seems
he
like
was
he's manhandling everyone.
He was a
He has the
great
puck the
pickup last
entire
year.
time. Unbelievable.
him
Unbelievable.
and who's the other guy that the Bruins traded for last year? I think. Oh yeah, Marcus Johansson. I don't know
Marcus
why they didn't
Johansson.
sign him back. He had a great season. He was,
Yeah. I mean, they didn't have the cap,
he
but
was great last year.
what are you gonna do?
How do you guys feel about Rask?
I will back up Tuukka Rask. I think until my dying breath. I think it's incredibly selfish with Bruins fans to be wanting his head on a stick for how much he's done and how much he continues to do. I think he's a fantastic goaltender, but can you imagine the pressure of consistently being a good, if not great, goaltender and consistently having your city say, "We hate you"?
Yeah, I can't imagine it. I firmly believe right now that Rask is the best goalie in Bruins history. I mean, you can look at the numbers, his playoff, like it's not as close as people would think. And he just consistently, like even that Game 7 last year, I hate to keep bringing it up, but people want to blame it on him. I don't know, understand. I could blame maybe one goal on him. First one was a tip in. Second was that
Yeah.
change by Marchand.
And
And he it's unbelievable. Like your top players are playing one of the worst games they've played all playoffs, leaving their goaltender out to dry, and people still
and
blame it on him. It just blows my
additionally,
mind
there,
sometimes.
Jack, you can't win a hockey game if you have 0 goals. I mean, I know they had one, but it was garbage time.
Yeah, it came in like what? There was like 11 minutes left in the third.
It's too late.
It was nothing.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not fair to him. He deserves better. Once he's gone, Bruins fans will definitely look back and appreciate him a little more, hopefully, because he's been fantastic.
Yep.
Hick, you have anything to say about that?
No, yeah, he's incredible. I think it's just where the Boston sports fans just expect way too much from all of their teams. That when they do bad, like every once in a while, they are like terrible. Whenever
100% agree with that.
When Rask comes in and gives up like 3 goals or whatever, everyone's like, "Oh my god, he needs out of here." But then he'll go.
Yeah, but he's had like 4 straight
one or no
or
goals, and then But it's always at the worst times when Halak does good too. It's always right after Rask is terrible. Halak comes in and he does a shutout, and everyone's like, "Oh, Halak's so much better than him." It's like, okay, but look at all the other games that Rask did insane for the Bruins and won them basically the game because of all the amazing saves he's done. Yeah, he always comes in and always is good right after Rask is terrible.
All right, guys. I think we're going to wrap it up. Thank you, Jack, for coming on the show today. It was a great show. A lot of good conversations.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. That was fun.
All right, guys. Tune in tomorrow. We'll have episode 7, and thanks
All right,
again.
see you guys.